Envision being stuck in a family where love is a prize you must earn, where you're repeatedly guilt-tripped, manipulated, and made to believe you're never enough, regardless of how hard you work. This isn't a book or movie plot, it's real life Mary Brown has lived for years. We've all watched her quietly suffering on Sister Wives, ever in the shadows, ever the second thought. As the show wallows in teeny boppers' gossip and domestic disputes, the underlying sores, the emotional abuse Mary has endured, are ignorantly overlooked. But here's what the cameras don't reveal. Behind each cold shoulder and dismissive stare is a troubling pattern of emotional manipulation, most notably by Cody Brown and his favourite wife, Robyn. And more appalling still? TLC has elected to turn a blind eye. We've been sold a version of Cody and Robyn that's been carefully polished. We're told they're just misunderstood, that their actions somehow come from a place of love. But where is the accountability? Where is the outrage for the pain they've caused Mary? Pain that has been right there in plain sight. This isn't reality TV melodrama. This is actual emotional harm unspooling week to week. Cody's love-bombing behaviours, Robyn's guilt-tripping manoeuvres. It's a coercive power play disguised as family dynamics. And TLC? They present the tears but edit away the trauma. Why hasn't anyone spoken out? Why is the network still shielding Cody and Robyn, while women like Mary quietly suffer in the wings? We're about to uncover a truth the show doesn't want you to see, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Hey friends, I'm Monisa, and welcome back to Sister Wives Underground. Before we dig deeper, make sure to hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe TLC is deliberately ignoring the darker reality of the Brown family? When you tune into Sister Wives, you meet Cody Brown, the so-called patriarch, flanked by his 4 wives, Mary, Janelle, Christine, and Robyn. But let's be honest, one wife has always stood out, and not for the right reasons. Come along comes Robyn. Everything is different since she's joined the family. The centre of attention has changed, the dynamic has been broken. And Cody, he did not even bother to hide who his favourite is. Robyn was not only a new wife, she became the focal point of his affections, leaving the others, particularly Mary, emotionally isolated. Mary, Cody's original love interest, was relegated to the side. A relationship that was once warm became transactional, cold, and excruciatingly distant. And yet the show only scratches the surface of her hurt. It's not merely about unfair treatment, it's about emotional betrayal. And the silence surrounding it, that's what's lethal. Stick around, because in the next part of this deep dive, we're going to expose the patterns, the power plays, and the shocking indifference that has allowed this emotional abuse to flourish under the disguise of family unity. Mary didn't give in. In that crucial moment when Cody expected her to once again carry the weight of his emotions and be his emotional crutch, she set a boundary, and she stood by it. She didn't fall for the manipulation. But here's the problem. When Mary dares to protect herself, when she draws those emotional lines, she's labelled as cold or distant, not just by Cody, but by the show itself. Instead of recognising her assertiveness as an act of self-respect and empowerment, TLC spins it as a character flaw, as if there's something wrong with a woman finally saying, enough is enough. Why is it that when Mary refuses to carry Cody's emotional burdens, she's framed as the villain? Why is her strength viewed as harsh when it's the first real sign of her reclaiming her own mental and emotional health? Mary's transformation isn't flashy. It can't be neatly wrapped up in a 2-minute clip or montage. It's a slow, painful unraveling of years of manipulation and emotional programming. And with every time she says no, every time she resists Cody's guilt trips, she takes one more step toward healing. Sadly, this growth has gone largely unnoticed by the show. Rather than honouring her journey, TLC has continued to cast her in the same tired role, the bitter wife who no longer plays along. But anyone really paying attention knows the truth. Mary isn't bitter. She isn't cold, she's finally discovering her own strength, her own voice, and the warmth that comes from living life on her own terms. Now let's talk about the manipulation, because when it comes to Cody and Robyn Brown, we're not just talking about favoritism, we're looking at a calculated, ongoing pattern of emotional control. And Cody, he's mastered the art of love bombing. Whenever he needs something from Mary, whether it's to draw her back in emotionally or shift the power dynamic in his favor, he suddenly becomes attentive, affectionate, even vulnerable. It's all part of a carefully crafted strategy. He makes Mary feel seen, needed, special, just long enough to pull her back under his influence. We see this tactic most clearly during emotional peaks, like the tell-all episodes. That's when Cody turns on the charm, he lavishes Mary with compliments, presents himself as sympathetic, and pretends to acknowledge her pain. The affection seems real, it seems heartfelt, but it's not. It's manipulation disguised as concern. This is textbook love bombing. It's meant to confuse the target, Mary, by creating a cycle of emotional highs and lows. One moment Cody is cold, unavailable, dismissive. The next he's pouring on affection as if she's the center of his world. And just when she starts to believe in that version of him, he pulls away again. Cody pretends at times that he and Mary share a renewed closeness, acting as though they're the perfect couple. But it's a facade, a carefully orchestrated illusion designed to create a false sense of intimacy. It never lasts long because it was never rooted in genuine love. It's always been about control. Every emotional display, every affectionate gesture is meant to pull Mary back in, just long enough for Cody to reassert dominance over her feelings. But Cody isn't the only one orchestrating this emotional web. Robyn's tactics are just as harmful, though often more subtle. She operates quietly, cloaked in innocence, yet every move she makes is calculated. Robyn is the master of guilt. She knows exactly how to twist Mary's sense of duty and loyalty, using those deep emotional traits against her. Whenever Mary resists Cody's manipulation, Robyn is right there to make her feel selfish or emotionally distant. She doesn't shout or argue. Instead, she plays the family card, subtly suggesting that Mary's refusal to cooperate is the reason for their disunity. Robyn frames herself as the emotional glue, the peacemaker who's only trying to keep everyone together. But beneath that image lies a far more manipulative motive. Take, for example, those emotionally charged moments when tension is thick and Robyn's tears begin to flow. She instantly casts herself as the victim, fragile, overwhelmed, in need of protection. And in doing so, she manipulates the dynamic, making it seem like Mary is somehow neglecting her role in the family. She implies, directly or indirectly, that Mary is failing to be a good wife, a good sister wife, a good person. It slowly erodes the confidence of Mary, leaving her feeling like an outcast. Robyn does not have to say it in words. The message is loud and clear. Mary is the problem. She stands between peace. And with Cody on her side, time after time, she could hammer this message into the mindset of Mary. What's most disturbing is that the show never holds them accountable for any of it. TLC glosses over the manipulation and gaslighting, choosing instead to present Cody and Robyn as a misunderstood couple, two people just trying to make their complicated marriage work. Their relationship is bathed in soft lighting and sympathetic editing, painting them as a loving, unified pair. Meanwhile, when Mary stands up for herself, when she calls out the dysfunction, she's framed as combative or cold. Instead of focusing on the emotional strain she's endured, the show spins her strength into something negative. It's as if standing up to emotional abuse is somehow the real betrayal. The truth is, viewers can see what's happening. The manipulation, the guilt trips, the emotional control, it's all there. But TLC refuses to acknowledge it. They bury the real story, and that raises the most important question of all. Why is no one calling Cody and Robyn out? Why has Mary been left to carry the emotional burden on her own? The silence from the network is loud, and it's telling, because in choosing to protect Cody and Robyn, TLC isn't preserving a family. They're preserving the power of two people who've learned exactly how to manipulate the system. Let's take a moment to talk about TLC, because honestly, what are they doing? How is it possible that with all the obvious manipulation, emotional abuse and toxic behavior coming from Cody and Robyn, the network continues to sweep it all under the rug? It's almost as if TLC is complicit, protecting the fantasy of a harmonious, plural family, while intentionally ignoring the damage being done behind closed doors. Think about it. They've built a brand around the Brown family, carefully curating a fairy tale image that skips past the real raw dysfunction. And when it comes to confronting those issues, they fall completely flat. Take Suki, for example, the host who's supposed to ask the hard-hitting questions during the tell-alls, but instead of holding Cody accountable or even acknowledging Robyn's manipulative tactics, she tiptoes around the real topics. Suki hardly ever pushes back. She doesn't fight those stories. Instead, she nudges the Browns to share their feelings, which tends to water it down instead. Where's the accountability? Why is no one asking Cody point blank about emotional control he exercises over his wives? Why isn't Robyn ever called out on how she tends to guilt trip and isolate everyone? It's incredibly frustrating to watch as a viewer. You're waiting for that moment, when someone finally confronts Cody and Robyn, when the truth is laid bare, but it never happens. Instead, the show wraps everything up in a neat little bow, casting Cody and Robyn as a couple who are just misunderstood or going through a rough patch. What TLC is doing, or rather not doing, speaks volumes. They have the platform, they have the footage, they have the power to expose the emotional fallout of these relationships, to show how polygamy, in this context, has deeply harmed women like Mary, Janelle, and Christine. But instead of revealing the truth, they focus on creating just enough drama to keep people watching, while protecting the image of a family that barely holds together. In doing so, they hand over control of the narrative to Cody and Robyn, allowing them to portray themselves as the victims. The lack of real questioning, the absence of confrontation, it all reveals a deeper truth. TLC is far more interested in preserving its sanitized storyline than in addressing the real harm unfolding in front of the cameras. This silence isn't neutral, it's enabling, and it's damaging. By choosing to avoid the hard truths, TLC isn't just ignoring the pain of Mary, Janelle, and Christine, it's reinforcing it. The show's refusal to hold anyone accountable speaks volumes, and viewers are left wondering, why? Why is the network more committed to keeping the peace than exposing the pain? It feels all calculated, that is, for the sake of ratings and reputation, an avoidance of reality, and in the middle of it all is Mary, the extent of whose emotional toll had been quietly building for years. Long before she started taking boundaries, long before she began to push back against Cody's and Robyn's manipulation, Mary was already caught in the cycle of emotional exhaustion and silent suffering. Let's rewind to the earlier seasons of Sister Wives, back when the cracks in the Brown family's foundation first began to show. Remember when Mary's dissatisfaction started becoming painfully obvious? You could see it, the emotional weight she carried, the silent heartbreak of being sidelined in her own marriage. From the beginning, Mary's role in the family was shifting, but not in a way that offered her peace or purpose. It was clear Cody no longer prioritized her, and that emotional neglect bled into every scene she appeared in. This wasn't just about the growing tensions among the wives. This was about Mary being systematically pushed into the background while Cody became increasingly emotionally invested in his relationships with Robyn and the others. Mary wasn't just forgotten, she was left behind. The emotional burden of being invisible, of feeling like a supporting character in her own story, became her daily reality. She was alone, grieving the loss of emotional intimacy and drowning in guilt for needs that were never met. Then came the infamous catfishing scandal, a moment that should have sparked compassion, but instead became another tool used to discredit her. For Mary, it was a breaking point. She had been emotionally vulnerable for years, and in that vulnerable state she reached out, only to be deceived, and when that betrayal exploded in public, it wasn't just the tabloids that turned on her. Cody used the moment to paint her as the problem, skillfully twisting the narrative to make her seem untrustworthy or unstable, while ignoring his own emotional abandonment that led her there in the first place. Robyn didn't make things easier either. Rather than offering support, she inserted herself into the situation in a way that only deepened Mary's isolation. Robyn took center stage, and Mary was further pushed out, forced to carry even more of the emotional burden while receiving none of the support or grace extended to others. And this wasn't an isolated incident. Mary's struggle has been ongoing, simmering under the surface for years. Every time she tried to speak her truth or assert her needs, her words were twisted or dismissed. Her attempts at setting boundaries were interpreted as hostility. Her emotional reality was continuously invalidated, gaslighted by both Cody and the system around them. Yet somehow, the show has never truly acknowledged the full weight of what Mary has endured. Instead, Sister Wives presents this endless manipulation as just another aspect of plural marriage, as if emotional neglect and mental strain are simply the price you pay. But for Mary, this wasn't a lifestyle choice. It was survival. She didn't choose to be cast aside. She didn't choose to be emotionally neglected, and she certainly didn't choose to carry the shame for a dynamic she never controlled. Mary's journey within the Brown family has been anything but smooth. It's been a long road marked by silence, struggle, and a slow reclaiming of her voice. And the more you look back, the clearer it becomes this isn't just about family conflict, this is about one woman's fight to be seen in a space that constantly tried to erase her. And if you really take a step back and look at the history, it's painfully clear. Mary Brown has been dealing with emotional manipulation and neglect for a long time. The cracks in her relationship with Cody didn't suddenly appear when she began setting boundaries. They were there all along, slowly widening with each passing season. Right from the early episodes, it was clear that Mary was not comfortable with her position in the family. Honestly, who could blame her? Mary was the first wife, the one who started this journey with Cody. But as the family expanded and new wives entered the picture, especially Robyn, it became increasingly apparent that Mary was no longer Cody's emotional priority. The shift wasn't subtle, as Cody poured more time, affection, and energy into his newer relationships. Mary's significance in the family dynamic began to shrink. She wasn't just losing attention, she was losing her identity within the family. And this wasn't just about a love triangle. Mary was consistently placed in a position where she had to compete for Cody's attention, affection, and even basic emotional validation. Imagine having to fight just to be seen by your own husband. Every time she tried to express how she felt or advocate for herself, she was shut down, ignored, or made to feel like she was the problem. Her needs became invisible, and over time you could see it. Behind her eyes, the frustration, the pain, the quiet erosion of someone who was trying desperately to hold on to her worth. But the most pivotal and painful moment in Mary's struggle was the catfishing scandal. That event didn't just rock her personal world, it shattered any illusion of security she might have still had in her marriage. For years, she had already endured emotional neglect. But now, the entire world was watching as her vulnerability was laid bare. Instead of being met with compassion or support, Mary was humiliated. And Cody? He wasn't there to help her heal. He seemed more concerned with protecting his image and managing the fallout. And Robyn, well, her role in all this can't be ignored. While Mary was in emotional crisis, Robyn stepped in, not to lift Mary up, but to solidify her own position. She inserted herself as the comforting voice of reason, the supportive wife, while Mary was left to drown in her emotional devastation, alone. The catfishing incident wasn't just a misstep, it was the result of years of emotional starvation. Mary was reaching out, desperately searching for connection, but instead of empathy, she was met with judgment and blame. The family and the show itself portrayed her as the one who broke the trust, while completely ignoring the deeper question, what led her to that breaking point in the first place? Even though the signs of manipulation and abuse were right there, no one stepped in to call out the toxic dynamics. No one held Cody accountable. Instead, the show continued to downplay what Mary had been through, as if emotional abuse was just a side effect of polygamy, something that comes with the territory. But Mary's story isn't just a subplot. It's not just one woman's pain tucked into the background of a dramatic reality show. It's a warning, a spotlight on what happens when emotional needs are constantly denied, when boundaries are ignored, and when the people meant to love you the most become the ones who hurt you the deepest. But here's the truth. Mary's story is not just an isolated incident. It's part of a much larger, deeply troubling pattern of emotional and psychological harm that women in polygamous marriages often endure. Sure, the drama within the Brown family makes for good TV, but when you look closely, it mirrors the real, raw experiences of many women in similar situations. When polygamy is dressed up on screen to seem glamorous, functional, or peaceful, it's easy to forget the toll it takes, especially on women like Mary. Because it's not just about sharing a husband, it's about sharing his time, his attention, his emotional energy. It's about always being second or third or fourth. And that kind of dynamic eats away at your sense of self. The guilt, the gaslighting, the constant expectation to suppress your needs, it builds up, it breaks you down. And that's exactly what we've seen happen to Mary over the years. In families where the husband holds most of the power, the women are often left feeling invisible, isolated, and unheard. Imagine waking up every day in competition, not with the outside world, but with the people in your own home, just to feel valued. That emotional exhaustion doesn't just go away, it lingers. It chips away at your confidence, your voice, your self-worth. Mary's journey is not just about Cody, it's about the toxic structure she was trapped in, and it's a mirror reflecting the psychological toll many women face in polygamous systems, long after the cameras stop rolling. And still, TLC glosses over it. The network has the platform and the influence to highlight these painful truths. Instead, it chooses ratings over reality, romanticizing a lifestyle that, for many women, is rooted in emotional suffering. The show stays shallow when it should dig deep. It turns a blind eye when it should be exposing the damage. As we wrap this up, let's be clear, what we're watching isn't just harmless family drama. Cody and Robyn's manipulation, especially of Mary, isn't a subplot. It's the centerpiece of a toxic environment. And TLC has done very little to hold anyone accountable. Why is it that Cody and Robyn keep getting a pass? Why is a woman like Mary, who is finally standing up for herself, still painted as cold or heartless, rather than celebrated for reclaiming her power? So now I want to hear from you. Do you think TLC is intentionally hiding the truth? Why is there so much silence around the emotional and psychological harm polygamy causes, especially to women like Mary? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every one. And if you want more honest takes on sister wives, if you want the truth behind the reality TV curtain, more deep dives into the toxic dynamics, and the stories no one else is telling, make sure to like, comment, and hit that subscribe button. Because this family, it may look picture perfect on the surface, but underneath, there's something much, much darker.